Me. Good afternoon, Chair Pan, Chair Bonta, and members of the committee. My name is Eve Cherry. Serve as the president of the State Association of County Retirement Systems, generally referred to as SACRS. In my day job, I'm a deputy probation officer. I'm also a trustee on the Los Angeles County Board of Retirement, otherwise known as LACERA. My intent is to give you a high-level perspective as to what the organization, what the goals and the intent of this organization. I'm joined by my colleague on my right, Richard Stanstrom, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Sacramento Board of Retirement, who will give you a, so to speak, dig in the weeds, so to speak, as to what SACRS goals are. And Richard also serves as our chair on the Legislative Committee. SACRS comprises of the 20 counties that operate locally governed independent retirement systems under the authority of the County Employees Retirement Law of 1937, otherwise known as SERL. Our systems have three primary functions. First, to provide benefits to our members. Second, to minimize employer contributions. And third, maintain reasonable administrative costs for system management. In most cases, our systems are governed by nine-member boards comprised of locally elected county employees, including 9 general members, such as myself, 1 safety member, a retiree, 4 appointees by the County Board of Supervisors, and the county treasurer, tax collector, who serves as the ex officio member. All of our systems are governed by a single board of trustees except for my system, Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County has 2 boards. They have a board of retirement. We also have a board of investment as well. Some of our systems manage health care services for the counties. We also manage disability retirement claims. Historically, the 37 Act counties, as we are often referred by, were managed by county treasurers. In the 1970s, a confederation of our counties was formed, which evolved into what is now known as SACRS. SACRS also serve as an educational resource for our trustees and staff by holding educational sessions on the variety of issues that we deal with every day on the board. We also sponsor and enact legislation several years ago to mandate ethics training for our trustees and others, and offer those sessions to our trustees twice annually during the conferences that we hold. We typically hold a conference in May, which is called the Spring Conference. We also hold a conference in November. As always, SACRS looks forward to working with the PERS committee of both houses and the administration on policy matters, and we also are here to serve as a resource to you as you deliberate on those matters that are very, very important to us and to you as well. Here, I would conclude my statement. I'm joined by my colleague, Richard Stanstrom, who will dig into the weeds as to what we do at SACRS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members, staff. I appreciate the opportunity to be before you again. It's always nice to have an opportunity to dialogue with such an important part of how we operate. As Eve indicated, we have 20 county retirement systems which collectively have a footprint very much like the statewide systems. We collectively manage a large pool of assets. We collectively provide benefits to a large number of retirees and beneficiaries, and we collectively take care of active service, retirement service credit and accrual for a large number of public employees and a large number of participating employers. So from that perspective, we are like a statewide system, but we are also somewhat unique in that while operating under one body of law, you have 20 local control-based entities that also bring some unique attributes to the management and operation of the retirement system, which in some cases causes some differentiation between us and the larger statewide system. So like the statewide systems, as Eve indicated, we have an independent retirement board that governs our system, composed of representation from all of the significant stakeholders. We provide defined benefits to our members. That's our primary function. We, on a very limited basis, only some systems do address the healthcare component, but by and large, it is exclusively in the defined benefit plan arena. We have investment programs very comparable to the statewide systems individually, with broadly diversified portfolios, professional investment management, and the generation of investment performance, again, that is comparable to what you see in the larger systems. To give you an idea, though, of the range between the big end of our 20 systems and the small, we can look at LaSarra at one end and the Mendocino County retirement system at the other. You have LaSarra with $48 billion in assets, 93,000 active members, and 60,000 retirees and beneficiaries. And then you have the example of the small system in Mendocino County with about $440 million in assets, 1,100 active members, and 1,300 retirees and beneficiaries. We also, again, like the large systems, put our benefit stream out into our local communities and generate economic multiples off of that. And so while many people understandably look at the costs associated with the plans that we run, we also like to point out that we are economic generators, not simply economic receivers. And so, for example, in Sacramento County, in our county, we put out somewhere in the neighborhood of $150, $160 million a year in benefits just in Sacramento County. And that, through the economic activity multiplier effect, generates somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 million a year in economic activity, a large portion of which goes back into the tax stream and comes back into our plan sponsor to help fund all of the programs that our employees work for and that our stakeholders care very much about. We receive actuarial valuations annually. We operate our plans under the very comparable actuarial methodology as the large statewide plans. We comply with all of the public meeting open record laws. We have annual audits conducted by independent outside auditors. So we have the full array of checks, balances, and controls that the larger systems do. But we do have the ability to make decisions reflecting the local community in which the system sits, to reflect the local priorities, and to have local transparency and accountability of how the retirement system is doing. We are also, though, subject to PEPRA. So for all of the new members that have come into our plans since January 1st, 2013, they are covered by the new PEPRA tiers and benefit formulas. We have, however, like the other systems, what we call legacy tiers or legacy members. I think PERS decided to go with the Coca-Cola model of naming their classics. We're kind of the Pepsis of the world. We're legacy, so you have sort of a plan structure where you have legacy tiers with different formulas and a different cost structure, and you also then have the new PEPRA tiers that are eventually will become the dominant tier and plan across our systems. So another way that our systems are different from the statewide systems is because of the impact on our systems by far and away the dominant employer, which is the county. In our systems, the county is responsible for 95% or more of the members of our system, and hence responsible for 95% or more of the contributions that come into our system. So from our perspective, the county is a very important debtor of our system, and we want to make sure that we keep close tabs on them and make sure that we are monitoring their ability to continue to cover their part of the pension bargain. But we also find ourselves operating with a considerable level of continuing county control over how we operate the retirement systems. Unlike, again, the larger statewide systems, we have much more limitations on our ability to determine staffing levels, to determine compensation levels, and a number of other critical factors that go to our ability to be successful And I think you heard Ted mention a moment ago, one very valuable feature of being able to have a robust internal investment capability is the ability to take cost off of the table and to be able to generate quality performance, customized solutions at lower cost overall, ultimately coming back to benefit all of the stakeholders in the plan, including the plan sponsor. We hope that that is a topic that we can talk with you about more in the future. And thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
No, thank you. Thank you so very much. Actually, just quickly, is there some sort of report you come out with in terms of, you mentioned all the 20 plans that your organization comes out with, or is that something that just each individual plan, is there some compilation?
We're not currently compiling something, but it's actually something that we are talking about doing.
That would be very helpful. So,
Sure.
okay, no, thank you. Senator Beal.
Bill,
Sorry.
Bill. He'll get it. He's a freshman.
Thank you, Jim.
I got a question. What's discussion evolving into in terms of unfunded retiree health care, and what strategies are popping up among the discussions you guys are hearing in various counties, especially the big ones like Los Angeles, San Diego, and the larger counties?
Sure.
You give us kind of a flavor for what kind of discussions are taking place.
Right.
so
One
we get
thing
that
I think
information.
with-
I'm
with-
interested in studying that because the governor mentions it in his budget, at least in terms of the state, but I'm also interested in, having served 26 years in local government, I'm interested in what local government is, what strategies they're using.
Certainly. Senator, there's
Funding it or pay-as-you-go, or how you mix that.
there's a lot of variation among both our systems and our county plan sponsors on healthcare. Very few, I think Lacera is the only one of our systems that actually runs a healthcare plan along with the pension plan.
Yeah, right.
The counties are the primary plan sponsors of the healthcare plans for most of in most of our situations. There's also variation with whether or not those healthcare benefits are vested benefits or not, which goes to the commitment that you have to make to pre-fund.
Right.
We are seeing a lot of retractment, if you will, in the area of healthcare on the part of county plan sponsors, with counties looking to push more cost onto the retirees and beneficiaries and subsidizing less and less of that cost. Simultaneously looking at ways to generate savings while employees are working to use to help cover those costs. Another phenomenon that is discussed is whether or not the concept of pooling active employees and retirees is going to continue. That has benefits for the retirees in that they are in a pool with healthier people, and their cost therefore benefits from that. But to the extent that that the employer ultimately is looking to cut its healthcare costs, then there's going to be pressure to look at that topic.
Yeah, so how about Los Angeles? What do you hear in the big cities, the big county?
Currently, Los Angeles have taken steps with their board of supervisors to develop a plan to look at not only look at the how to go about lowering the cost, but also for, again, future employees, and I call them babies unborn. And we were Los Angeles have been successful in lowering that and developing a program to bring in new employees at a lower tier, second tier, and there's a significant cost savings for the county, and that decision that was mutually agreed to between the county and labor.
Is that all happening? It's all happening through the bargaining process.
Yes, Senator.
So the retirees are involved in that via the bargaining process.
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to have the staff maybe get us some information about what strategies are being used in various counties, and kind of get a look at that. One of the reasons is as we get more into just generally the way the government's going, I think is there's going to be more collaboration activities between state and local governments. So I think it's important for us to sort of scan what's going on in the fiscal accounting and local government, so we understand where the tension is a little bit that way. So I would appreciate that.
Senator, I can certainly forward just your staff
Thank you.
the information that we've been dealing with over at
Thank you very much.
at LA County.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, seeing none, I want to thank you so very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have is the California Department of Human Resources. I'm just going to ask our speakers to try to be brief. We're about half an hour behind on our schedule, so but obviously I also want to be sure people have a chance to hear everything you want to present. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chairman Bonta and Dr. Pan and members of the respective committees. In the interest of time, I'll be happy to waive my testimony and move straight to questions. But seeing no takers on that, I guess I'll proceed. So my name is Richard Gillahan. I'm with the Department of Human Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. First, I'd like to provide a brief overview of CalHR and our programs. After that, I'll address the specific questions received from committee staff, and then I'll be happy to take any questions the members may have. CalHR is a central human resources agency for state government. We represent the governor as the employer in all matters concerning state employer-employee relations. We're responsible for all issues related to collective bargaining, including pay, benefits, classification, training, and other matters. CalHR was created in 2012, through the Governor's Reorganization Plan number 1 of 2011 that consolidated the non-constitutional aspects of the State Personnel Board with the former Department of Personnel Administration, creating the CalHR we have today. Notable functions that transferred from SPB to CalHR include the Selections Division. That's the division that does the job examinations portion of civil service and oversees that process. The Office of Civil Rights, who provides statewide leadership and guidance in the areas of EEO, diversity, reasonable accommodation, and bilingual services. And then the Psychological and Medical Screening Program, and they primarily oversee psychological screenings for potential peace officer candidates. In addition to those functions, CalHR continues to administer aspects of state personnel management that became subject to collective bargaining as a result of the DILS Act in 1978. Under DILS, we're required to meet and bargain in good faith with our various employee unions over wages, hours, and terms and conditions of employment. We're responsible for contract negotiations and administration for the state's 21 bargaining units, represented by 11 or 12 unions, depending on how you count. There are roughly 182,000 full-time equivalent employees in these 21 units. These are rank-and-file civil service employees. In addition, there's another 38,000 employees that are non-represented. These are based, generally our managers and supervisors. They don't have bargaining rights, but they do have the right to representation, and we can meet and confer with their representatives. So in total, we manage a workforce of more than 220,000 employees, making us a large employer by any measure. 4 of our labor contracts are set to expire in July. These contracts are with the California Correctional Peace Officers Association, Bargaining Unit 6, Professional Engineers in California Government, which is Bargaining Unit 9, California Association of Professional Scientists, Bargaining Unit 10, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Bargaining Unit 12. These 4 contracts represent approximately 52,000 employees, or 29% of our civil service workforce. And we just started the precursor activities to formal negotiations last week, so we expect those to begin shortly. Other functions of CalHR, as I mentioned, bargaining and administration of employee contracts, setting pay and benefits for managers and supervisors, managing the state's classification and pay program, administering employee benefits, providing legal representation to state agencies in labor relations matters, contract interpretation, and appeals of disciplinary actions. And more recently, CalHR assumed additional responsibility for collective bargaining with the IHSS and Home Supportive Services workers on behalf of the newly established statewide authority pursuant to the IHERA Act of 2012. In addition, as director, I hold ex officio membership on the CalPERS Board of Administration. You heard from some of my CalPERS colleagues earlier. We also advise departments and departmental human resources staff on a wide range of personnel policies, including layoffs, leave administration, travel reimbursement, exempt appointments, and workforce planning. We manage and administer a number of employee benefit programs, including the Savings Plus program, which is a voluntary tax-deferred defined contribution program, separate from the CalPERS defined benefit. We manage the master agreement with SCIF. We handle employee vision and dental insurance programs, and a number of other ones. In the interest of time, I'll skip along. And finally, I would just say that we're a relatively small department, and we perform these functions with a staff of 294 dedicated, hardworking state employees. and a current year operating budget of $59.4 million, 7.8 of which is general fund. So, did I move fast enough through that? All right, thank you. And with that as a backdrop, I received two specific areas to discuss from committee staff and with the board, or with the committees. Okay. The first question had to do with the governor's budget, talked about civil service, improving the state's civil service, and the question was to briefly describe some of the improvements anticipated and progress on developing a strategy for improvements in the status of stakeholder meetings. So the governor's proposal for improving the state civil service system is a broad collaborative effort to address many of the systemic challenges the state faces in managing our workforce. As noted in the January budget, the state civil service system is a complicated, inflexible, and highly bureaucratic set of rules, regulations, and policies that has been slow to adapt to generational and demographic changes in the workforce and to emerging trends in the workplace. As a result, California is not optimally positioned to consistently recruit and retain the best and brightest, to properly train and support our employees to perform to their highest potential, and to plan for the succession of future leaders, all key characteristics of a strong and nimble civil service. To address these challenges, a work group was established last fall. We looked at all the past studies, whether it was from the Little Hoover Commission, CPR, Ledge Analyst, and any others that were out there. And then we also came up with our own ideas and strategies about what we thought needed to be fixed and opportunities for improvement. Through this process, we developed a high-level plan to assess the various issues and make recommendations. The plan categorizes the specific issues into the following focus areas: recruitment, retention and development, compensation, labor relations, strategic planning, performance management and discipline, and policies. Project leads have been identified for each focus area, and the working teams are being established as we speak. These teams will generally consist of state and union representatives as appropriate. A two-tier governance structure has also been established. It includes representatives from the Government Operations Agency, CalHR, State Personnel Board, and the Department of Finance. One notable example under the umbrella of improving civil service is a joint project we initiated in December with SPB, the Department of Rehabilitation, the Civil Rights Coalition, SEIU Local 1000, and various departments to make meaningful improvements in the hiring, retention, and career development opportunities for persons with disabilities. It's important work and something we're proud to be part of. Moving forward, as the work teams complete their reviews and recommendations, the administration will determine which specific recommendations to pursue and the appropriate venue for each. To the extent statutory changes are necessary, we look forward to working collaboratively with the legislature on implementation. And again, we're happy at any milestone or as the committees may wish to meet with staff or the committees and provide updates on our progress. Okay. And then the second question from staff had to do with the governor's healthcare proposals. And specifically, I could see that from the earlier question, Senator.
Good.
So it said, how do you see the collective bargaining process fitting with the governor's retiree health care proposals? And so it's true, the budget contained a rather extensive write-up on the governor's plans, and I'm sure it's not lost on the committee that there was a trailer bill presented to the legislature from the Department of Finance. And so the governor's health care proposals are primarily focused in three areas: eliminating the unfunded liability for retiree health benefits, which is currently estimated to be $72 billion and growing, implementing a lower-cost health plan offering, and reserving benefits for career workers and family members. It's important to note that these proposals generally have no impact on current retirees. The only exception would be if there was an underlying change in the formula used to determine the state's contribution, but otherwise retirees would be unaffected. Nor would any of the agreements reached at the bargaining table affect current retirees. And I think that was a question Senator Bell might have asked earlier. We don't bargain with retirees. They're retired. We bargain with current employees. So nothing reached an agreement at the bargaining table would affect current retirees. And I think that's an important distinction to note. On the other hand, the proposal to eliminate the unfunded liability by the state and our employees sharing in the cost of pre-funding these benefits is generally a matter of bargaining, and those will be pursued at the bargaining table. And that would affect both current and future employees. Similarly, the plan to change vesting schedules and the employer contribution in retirement will also be pursued in bargaining, but unlike pre-funding, it would only affect prospective employees. Other aspects, such as offering a low-cost plan offering, which would be a completely voluntary option for employees, I might add, that seems to be lost in a lot of the discussion, requires action of the CalPERS board, and as such, it's being pursued statutorily, as are the other related transparency measures. And that concludes my testimony. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Questions? Okay. Senator Bell.
So in terms of the containing cost, in the budget document, talks about, right now, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just reading what I see here. It says that, employees that have between 10 and 20 years are eligible for some of the retiree health benefits. And you're talking about maybe looking at 15 to 25, or adding 5 years on. And that would be for new employees, is that correct? Is that the idea?
That's correct. And
How
so
much money would that save?
we don't have exact cost estimates yet, but actuarially, it's a win for the state in the long
Well,
run.
of course, I imagine.
But so the idea is to
Win
encourage.
for the state and loss for the person that works between 10 and 15 years.
Well, it's to encourage full careers, just
Yeah.
as the pension reform of 2012, the revised formulas were designed to encourage longer working careers. So that period between, the state's early retirement ages and when people become Medicare eligible is a very expensive period for the employer. And so the thought here is that the way the model works today, with 10 years of service, you're eligible for 50% of the state's contribution in retirement towards health care. In 20 years, you're eligible for 100% of the state's contribution. And this proposal for prospective employees, not current employees, but prospective employees, would change that to 15 years for 50% and 25 years for 100%.
Okay, how about improving the civil service system? There's a whole chapter in the budget about that also. I was reading that last night.
And
What kind of major proposals are you looking at that we should review in our committee on that? I'm looking at this from, not necessarily looking at now, but I want to kind of get a, sort of what kind of committee you look at that's relevant in terms of a policy change. So that's why I'm looking at Mr. Chairman that way.
at this point, we don't have any specific proposals for the committee's consideration.
Right.
That's the analysis we're working on now. We'll be bringing those forward, particularly the ones that require statutory changes to implement.
You
We look
have these
forward to-
committees that are working on it and so forth and so
Yes.
on, right? Why can't you have them come and make a progress report to us?
And I committed to doing that in my response
Yeah,
earlier. So.
yeah, okay. And the other question I had for my area, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'm sorry I'm taking a lot of time here, but my constituents that are state employees regularly and often complain about the lack of differential pay for the high-cost area in Silicon Valley and other high-cost areas. Has that ever been a subject to even do a investigation on, or in terms of retaining employees compared to the salaries of other governmental entities?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Senator. And we do, as a matter of fact. We look at, particularly where we have recruitment and retention challenges in certain regions that tend to be high cost or very
Yeah.
rural. And
Silicon
the
Valley
state-
is pretty big. in that.
I acknowledge that, yes. And we
Oh,
have
God.
a number of actual geographical pay differentials to address that.
They don't have it for legislators, so
I can't help you with that.
Yeah,
But,
we can't deal with that one.
I can tell you that.
it doesn't work that way.
but-
But it may be for the employees of the state, I don't know.
And that's for our rank and file employees, that's
Yeah.
a subject of bargaining, and we're happy to discuss that at the bargaining table.
So you only deal with that in terms of the bargaining kind of condition. You haven't done any studies on that?
We look at it in
So
the,
unless the bargaining unit brings it up, you're not going to deal with that?
no, that's not what I'm saying. I apologize for
Okay,
being
well, I want to
unclear.
hear what you're going to say then.
So we look at it, it could also affect management employees or non-represented employees. So if
They get
departments,
hurt the worst.
so if departments identify recruitment challenges in a particular area, we look at that as part of trying to figure out how to solve the problem. And to the extent we think money fixes it, we have R&R differentials both for non-represented employees and represented employees. What I was suggesting is, to the extent it's represented employees, that is legally a matter of bargaining. We're not allowed to apply it without reaching agreement with our unions on that. We can apply those types of differentials as we see appropriate to non-represented employees under our administrative authority.
Okay, I got one more question. The governor was, I don't know, he was vetoing one of my bills, and he wrote, he vetoed a bunch of them last year, so. I don't think I had the record, but I had close to the record of vetoes last year. I think I had 6 or 7. I can't remember how many. But one of them he vetoed was it dealt with like compaction studies. And he said you guys were going to do the compaction study. So what's going on with that? I'd like to know about that. That's a subject to put on the table here,
So,
since you vetoed my bill.
sir, I didn't veto your bill, but
You meaning the we, the royal sense,
I understand, Senator. So I would say that we continually,
or management employees.
yes, we continually look at issues, and it's about what are the highest priority issues, and there's only so much capacity budgetarily and otherwise to address these challenges. So we look at the highest priority issues. We've made progress. Last budget, we addressed some serious compaction issues and other related matters with some of our supervisory groups.
Yeah.
And we continue to look at those sort of on a flow basis and in conjunction and with the groups that represent our non-represented employees.
So you've done some work on that.
We've done some work on it.
Okay,
It's
can you
an
give me a
ongoing
report
thing.
on that?
What's that?
Can you give me a report on that? Maybe come back and give us a report in the Senate committee.
If that's what the committee wishes, we certainly would.
That's what I want. I don't know
If
about
you
the
could, that'd be wonderful. We'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none.
That's all.
I would, first of all, I want to thank you, Dr. Callahan, for being here and actually addressing the questions that our committee had, and appreciate you. Couple of things I just wanted to mention is that, first of all, I appreciate your offer. We'd love to take you up on that, on civil service reforms. And also, hopefully you're already aware, we're going to have a hearing around the low deductible health plan issue, our committee here, because I think there's some policy concerns in regards to that. I realize it's voluntary, but having been a former health committee chair, I you know, voluntary still has certain impacts on choices people make and so forth. So, and how that can impact other employees. So we look forward to having a discussion about that and what impact that would have on our both state employees and retirees. And certainly we want to work with you as we're looking at the state retiree system. I realize some of that will be in the budget committees as well. So, but we want to be sure that there's that people have access to health care when they're retired. So, and I appreciate what you said, that it's the future retirees, it's not the past ones, but we also keep an eye on those, on them as well. So I want to thank you so much. I know you tried very hard to keep things contained, and I do appreciate that.